Grounded my traumatized foster daughter for reporting my biological daughter to the police over Skittles, triggering a major family conflict. I, 34F, have been looking after my foster daughter Mary, 13F, for over a year, ever since her parents overdosed on drugs. I also have a biological daughter Lila, 12F. Mary and Lila mostly get along, although there have been some minor arguments. A few weeks ago, the police came to Lila's school. Someone had sent an anonymous message to the school saying that Lila was in possession of drugs. After searching through her phone, locker, and bags, they realized that the drugs in question were Skittles that Lila had lying around in her bag, accidentally ripping open the packaging. Lila was terrified of the police and was traumatized by the incident. She's a very shy, quiet girl who had a panic attack at the thought of being sent to prison. While they wouldn't reveal who told on her, Lila suspected that it was Mary since she was the only one who could have seen the Skittles in her bag. Mary denied this at first, but eventually she snapped under pressure and admitted it. She said she made a mistake and was scared that Lila would overdose like her parents. I know that Mary has trauma related to drugs. But that's not an excuse. I've made it very clear that she can come talk to me about anything, even if it involves Lila, and yet she went to the school instead of telling me first. Mary said that she only went to the school in case I was biased towards Lila. She knew full well the legal ramifications of her actions. Both of them could have potentially been removed from my care. I can't help but think her intentions are malicious. Skittles look absolutely nothing like drugs. She didn't even talk to me or Lila about it, she just went straight to the authorities. So I decided to ground her, stop her allowance, increase her chores, and take away her electronics for the entire summer. She's still upset with me for this, saying I went too far and I was punishing her for having trauma and trying to do the right thing. But I feel like I have a duty to teach her that it's not okay to potentially get our entire family into legal trouble over a misunderstanding. Ida? Edit. The reason I thought she had malicious intentions was because the week before, Mary coincidentally started a large argument with Lila for hanging out with Mary's crush. Lila eats candy all the time, especially Skittles, and Mary knows that Skittles are her favorite. From Am I the Asshole? I'm tempted to say Uda, bordering on nah. I think that Mary's reasoning is fairly sound. She's a kid who's deeply traumatized by experiences in her own life with people using drugs. And it's very, very hard for a 13-year-old to conceptualize the repercussions for something like this. If she was acting out of malice, that's one thing, but I think it's pretty hard for anyone online to be able to say if that's the case. That said, I do think your punishment is extreme. I think this is a great opportunity to have more heart-to-hearts with Mary and help her learn how serious this could have been. Is she already in therapy? I assume she must be as a foster child with her history, but if not, she absolutely should be. Additionally, if Mary was exacting out of jealousy or some other feelings around your bio daughter, layering on punishments may just make that separation worse. Do they generally get along well? Are they close or more distant? Mary is going through an immense amount of loss and change, and her feelings toward your daughter are likely very complicated even if they're generally close and friends. I think it would be reasonable to lighten up your punishments while also checking in with her more regularly and emphasizing the seriousness of the situation. Depending on the quality of your caseworkers, you may want to discuss with them as well. I feel like the school handled this poorly and that's who OP needs to be dealing with. If a student reported a kid having drugs and that kid is usually quiet and well behaved, it seems like a huge jump in logic to immediately call the police before even attempting to speak to her parents. So OP needs to give the traumatized child some grace and turn her frustration on the adults who caused her bio daughter to be traumatized and humiliated by the police. The school failed her child. Isn't the school a mandated reporter? Once Mary said Lila has Skittles or drugs in her backpack. The school had no choice but to report it. Mandated reporter requirements are for abuse and neglect, which was not the case here. And it is for reasonable suspicion, not hearsay. They certainly should have investigated the situation but wouldn't be required to report the incident, particularly as it would have turned out the other child did not tell the truth. From Am I the Angel? I refuse to cast judgment because this is a situation above my pay grade, but I have definitely seen cases where traumatized children have weaponized what they learned from abuse to hurt other people. I have also seen cases where traumatized children act protectively and in irrational ways due to their past abusive experiences. It could go either way. Emo and OP needs to tread carefully to figure out which is happening. I don't think this is something that OP or any of us can figure out without a therapist involved. I mean, I've seen a few that might look like them, somewhat, from my time working at a rehab clinic, but that's some weird shit that I doubt a teenager in middle school would have. Edit. I remembered phenelzine, antidepressant, looks somewhat like an orange Skittle egg, and that's something a teen might have. Doesn't make me believe it anymore though, cause this story is just a load of bullshit all the way through update 1. After receiving thousands upon thousands of comments, I would like to say that I realized my mistake. I wasn't taking into account the immense amount of trauma that Mary has gone through at such a young age, and the effect it had on her actions. I had a tough, but necessary conversation with both Lila and Mary. We had a heart-to-heart, so that both girls could hear from each other's perspectives. What had happened was, Mary found out that Lila had been hanging out with a boy that Lila knew was Mary's crush. This was also the 1-year anniversary of Mary's parents' overdose, and she confessed that her grief coupled with what she interpreted as Lila's betrayal influenced what happened the following week. Mary maintains that she'd mistaken the candy for drugs, but she owned up to the fact that she'd notified the teachers, not only because she was concerned for Lila's safety, but because she believed that it wasn't fair for Lila to get away unpunished for having drugs, after everything that had happened to Mary's parents. I know I should have been angry at Mary. But seeing the response to my initial post has opened my eyes. I've been informed that traumatized children can lose their common sense after being exposed to triggers. I assume this applies even more when it occurs around the anniversary of their trauma, and this can lead them to make decisions that may sound outlandish in any other circumstances, decisions such as mistaking candy for drugs. Mary has had bad experiences in foster homes before. Several years before her parents' overdose, she was placed in foster care for the first time, before being reunited with her parents. She was in 3 different foster families and, in all of them, her foster parents favored their biological children, and they punished Mary if she told them about their bio children misbehaving. She was terrified that I would do the same, which is why she didn't come to me first. Mary acted out of pain, and I acted out of frustration without even hearing her side of the story. I lifted Mary's punishment. At that point, we still had nearly 3 weeks of summer break left. Lila has forgiven Mary, and we decided to put this incident behind us. Being a foster parent can be challenging, but I will be doing everything I can to learn from this situation and be a better mother moving forward. IDK, I think she might be lying a bit about her parents being the motivation here, and not the boy. Also, are you sure your daughter has forgiven her, and not just lost confidence in your ability/desire to protect her from Mary? What are you doing to protect your daughter if Mary tries something like this again? Yeah, this situation is a big ol' yellow flag. Not a red flag yet, no hard stop, but op needs to slow down and take time to consider the questions you've asked. Instead of marinara flags we've got mustard flags? Definitely not sunshine flags, or egg yolk flags. We need a name for yellow flags. Mustard can be a tentative stand-in. Mustard reminds me of that one story of the husband who was wildly abusive to his wife because she didn't like mustard. This isn't over. Mary is jealous of Lila and would like nothing more than to get rid of her. And why does Lila have to put up with this crap? Mary probably got punished in previous fosters for making up shit about the bio kids, not for telling on them. Have you ever known literally anyone who spent any time in foster care? Seriously? You know I actually have, more than one. And guess what? Trauma doesn't make you a good person. Sadly, the opposite usually occurs. Have the same compassion for Lila as you do for Mary.